You wake up to the sound of an alarm. Enemy fleet has engaged your ship. You start to panic, but then you remember that you turned on automatic targeting on all of your weapons and proceed to make yourself the morning coffee you need to function, while the enemy fleet gets blown to pieces. This could be you, if only you would consider selling half of your brain functions to mine bitcoins for your local billionaire. Alternatively, you can also pay a small price of few survival coins for this game on Steam. Starcom Unknown Space is the second game in the Starcom series, of which I only played this one game. I promise I will not leave you in the I will play later pile, maybe. The main selling point of this game is very complex and impossible to comprehend ship design mechanic. Actually, I am joking. It's in fact pretty easy to understand and quite well explained. Like, really well, which is weird for me to see in an indie game. I guess I am just used to certain type of indie games. Anyway, the mechanic, yes. Just like the greatest game of our entire generation, it functions on a superior hexagonal grid where every module has its own shape and interacts with whatever is connected to it. Do you want your ship to move? Thrusters are pretty decent at that job, but be careful, as they are also a very juicy weak spot for your opponents to aim at. Do you want your ship to function? Then you better protect that bridge with everything you got. Losing a thruster or a gun turret is a good alternative to being evaporated by the explosion of your main reactor. Also, do you by chance fancy to fire at the enemy? Well then, I hope you didn't forget to install your weapon or power modules. Unless, of course, your weapon of choice is that phallic looking steel beam extending from your ship. I don't judge. I do, however, encourage you to experiment and create the most wacky and monstrous ships possible, and then upload them onto the Steam Workshop, because yes, this game has a shared Steam Workshop, where you and other players can create, upload and share your ships with other creative people that enjoy this game. If you do end up playing this game and make something you are proud of, tag me with it on Twitter. I would love to see your creations. Let's talk a bit about weapons. Each of the available armaments have their strengths and weaknesses. To not spoil too much for you, I will focus on the three basic ones. First off, the plasma turrets. The first weapon your ship starts with. Its range is on the lower side, but thanks to the continuous barrage of the shots, its DPS is pretty decent. Those, however, are very prone to overheating, and you need a considerable amount of energy generation to keep shooting. Great as main ship weapons, if you buy enough of them, that is. Next, we got laser turrets. The range on those is good, amazing even, and they are always 100% accurate, while still keeping a decent DPS. The downside? They require a massive amount of energy, comparable to one of those cat sandwich reactors. You know which ones I'm talking about. And they also have a delay before firing. All that makes them work great as a point defense or support weapon. And lastly, we have the missile launcher. It does not require energy to fire and does not overheat, but the damage of each rocket is less what you would expect, at least at the early game. What I found them to be most useful as is distracting enemy turrets by making them target the missile instead of you. But make the choice and build your own ship. Even if weapons seem underwhelming or not worth investing into, they often have few upgrades in the tech tree that might make the lives of your enemies just a little bit worse. This is my final creation, the ship that made the endgame content feel like walk in the park. I'm just wondering though, who put minefield in the park? It had so much firepower and range that I would overload the enemy shields and take out their guns way before they even got a chance to fire at me. You might call it unfair, but I call it efficient research pathing. And yes, this game has a research tree. So if you want to use any of the advanced modules, or for your weapons to deal any significant amount of damage, you need to unlock the corresponding technologies in the tree first. How do you do that? By spending research points obtained by role-playing as the Great British Empire and borrowing the now unguarded relics of the different civilizations for science purposes. You can also sell those relics later for some profit. This will ensure that you have enough resources to do your science uninterrupted. This takes us to the economy. In this galaxy, there are many alien races, and with the lack of unified currency, this means that the trade is back to the good old times when you had to pay for the goods in the most natural way, with raw materials. For example, Ermer are a race of warrior mercenaries, so their primary currency is copper, as this is one of the most basic and easiest to obtain resources. That means everyone can pay you, and the more people hire and pay you, the more guns and ships you can afford to build. That gives them more firepower, and as the best warriors say,
there ain't no such thing as too much talking.
They are not really good at negotiations though. While I was trying to hire them to fight my enemy for me, I managed to convince them that I am more valuable in that fight than their entire fleet. And so, while I paid them 100 copper to fight the enemy, they paid me 120 copper to help them handle that enemy. Anyway, each faction has its own market, and by trading with them, you can lower or raise the relative price of each material. Luckily, they thought about it a little bit more than the developers of a certain RPG game that I used to play many years ago, and locked the maximum and minimum change in price, so you can't generate infinite wealth by selling and then buying some random gems at the expense of that poor store owner. Such a shame. But don't worry, you can still exploit your enemies for infinity resources. They don't mind, you just need to use the right arguments. Enemies, right. Let's talk about the story. You play as John Starcom, a commander in charge of your own scout ship. What is Starcom? It's the default human empire from Stellaris. Nothing much more to it really. Anyway, back to you. One day, on one of your commander level missions of space garbage disposal, you receive an SOS signal from a nearby station. When you go there, it turns out that your government was fucking with the fabric of space, and the space pulled the classic move of teleports behind you and fucks you back by sending a gigantic battleship to your space. It obliterates your station in a few seconds and disables your ship's power. Then, as the hostile vessel moves to blow up more stuff, you get sucked into a closing wormhole. Now you are stuck on the other side of the hole, with only one station that was guarding this side of the wormhole and somehow was not destroyed by that mysterious ship. What was that ship? How do you get home? Why did you not get destroyed? Answer to those questions you will have to find out on your own, because this is where the spoilers stop. In general, the story of this game is good, characters are believable, and behave in a way you would expect from them. Side quests and exploration play a big role in defining the story and background of what is happening. So be ready to read a lot if you don't want to be left confused, feeling like a grandpa who just discovered what Sonic Community was up to. Don't worry though, if you like the main story, you will not get bored by the side content. All in all, I think it's a good game and worth recommending. So go get it, or don't.